From NBC News, this is Today.
And up next, the new way to protect your children from traumatic injuries on the sports field. That's right after this. This morning on Today's Health, football helmets and head injuries. It's a growing concern among parents of younger players. Well, today's Tiki Barber has spent his share of time on the field. He's got more on this. Tiki, good morning.
Good morning, Ann. Concussions go drastically unreported in high schools, in part because many believe that you have to be knocked unconscious to have one. I recently went to a school outside of Boston where a new specialized helmet is being used to minimize the risk.
For the more than 1 million kids playing high school football.
Man, this is not a weapon right here. We do not tackle with what?
Helmet safety is one of the most important concerns. According to the Journal of Athletic Training, approximately 55,000 high school football players suffer concussions each year.
The brain has the consistency of jello in its natural state, and it really doesn't take a whole lot to injure it.
Although concussions can happen to any athlete in any sport, in 2008, football had the second highest number of sports-related head injuries.
Let's go, boys. Bring it in. Here we go.
John Pappas is the head coach of Buckingham, Brown, and Nichols in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Last year at BBNN, there were 21 reported concussions, and about a quarter of them were on his football team.
Football's a wonderful, wonderful game. It's a collision sport, though, and the boys need to know that. They know it. They know they have to play it safe.
But many kids would rather play through the pain than come off the field.
If you had a real concussion, you knew it, would you lie about it?
Last thing you want to do is come out when the game's on the line.
Obviously, it's not that smart of a decision, but, I mean, being a kid, you just want to go in there and help your team out.
Coach Pappas is an advocate of playing it safe, recently mandating the use of specially designed helmets aimed at protecting the athlete from traumatic brain injury.
The school didn't buy the helmets. The parents bought the helmets.
We didn't have it in the budget. We decided to approach our parents and say, do you want your son in what we feel is the safest helmet on the market? And 100% of our parents bought into the program.
At $350 a helmet, it's a significant cost for parents.
Even in times today, where everybody's scraping a little bit, I think that anything we can do to put the kids in a position where they may not get that concussion, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
Back to the whistle! Back to the whistle!
When that player gets hit, you really need to think about what's happening to the brain inside the skull.
The helmets, equipped with compressible shock absorbers, cushion much like an airbag in a car.
This system is really designed to not only prevent your skull from cracking, but actually minimize how suddenly your head moves during an impact.
A step in the right direction to minimizing head injuries.
Does this type of technology help?
Well, I think anything that's going to decrease the blunt force that the head sustains is likely going to help. But just like it is with car accidents and airbags, we're not going to eliminate concussion with technology.
The helmet is one part of the strategy. Technique, rule enforcement, and proper management of the injuries when they do occur are absolutely critical to addressing the epidemic.
For some, adding peace of mind in a sport of hard knocks.
I'm not sure we'll ever be concussion-proof, but we're taking a step in the right direction.
Let's bring in Dr. Joseph Congini, who's the medical director of the Sports Medicine Center at Akron Children's Hospital. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And thanks for joining us with Tiki here. So let's first of all talk about this epidemic as we just heard it described. You don't have to fall unconscious to have suffered a concussion.
Right. People know it as the silent epidemic right now because it's very hard to pick up on. And where we have to be better is in recognizing and educating parents and athletes about what concussion is. And that's why a segment like this is so helpful.
So how do we recognize a concussion? But
the fact is everybody thinks loss of consciousness. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's something that happens very obviously. But you know that only less than 20% of concussions have loss of consciousness. Over 80% don't have loss of consciousness. So there's other symptoms that kids have that show us the brain isn't working normally.
And we have a list of some of these things. There's a long list,
yeah, and you can see that there's a card we give parents because it's a long list, because the fact is the brain has a lot of different perform jobs or functions. And when the brain is bruised and not working right, you can have visual problems, you can have balance problems, you can have memory problems, sleep problems.
Headaches.
There's a lot of different things. One simple way to think about it is the brain doesn't work normally. It's like if you work and you're used to working on a high-speed computer, and all of a sudden you have to go to one of those old dial-up computers that take forever. Have you ever had that experience?
Yeah.
The brain actually works like that when kids are concussed.
You've been through this a couple of times. What can you add to this?
Well, you know, I was down on Capitol Hill for the concussion discussion they had in the House, and one of the things that kept coming up, and one of the things that I really wanted to express, and I just talked to you about this off air. Your son is playing football right now.
Yeah.
He's 14 years old, and I ask you, does your team have a doctor there?
And I don't
58% of high schools do not have access to an athletic trainer, and especially someone who's trained to recognize concussions. And that's where the danger comes in, because high school kids wanting to emulate the pros that they see on television will go right back into a football game because they feel like they don't want to let their team down, and that's where the danger is.
We've run out of time. Thanks so much, Tiki.
You're very
Dr.
welcome.
Congene, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Much more.